All right, folks, gather round. Let me tell you a story that still gives me chills, set 10 right here. Takes me back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, winter of 1873. Cold enough to freeze the horns off a brass bowl, it was. Now, down in the German Quarter, where folks mostly kept to themselves speaking the old tongue, there was this buzz going round. Not the friendly kind, mind ya. More like whispers, hushed and nervous, all about a little girl. 11 years old, name was Emma Richter. Pale as milk, quiet as a church mouse, this kid. But what she could do? Well, it plain baffled folks. Ask her what day of the week July 4th, 1776 fell on. Boom, she'd tell you before you could blink. Hear a whole conversation just once. She'd spit it back word for word, like she was reading it off a page. And steps? She knew exactly how many paces it was between any two buildings in the whole neighborhood. Down to the inch, I reckon. Nowadays, smart folks might say it was something special in her brain. But back then, people figured it was either a miracle straight from heaven or something downright unholy. Trouble started brewing when little Emma stopped just counting steps and started using that head of hers to dig up secrets. Buried things folks thought were hidden. She started predicting accidents where folks died, spouting off details about crimes that shouldn't have had no living witnesses. That wonder people felt. It curdled right quick into pure terror. By the time spring rolled around, 3 men were dead, 1 family lit out of town in the dead of night, and Emma Richter herself? Vanished. Poof. Gone. Left nothing behind but this old leather journal, crammed full of numbers. Numbers nobody dared try to figure out, like they was cursed or something. What them folks living in Brewery Town didn't grasp was that Emma's strange gift was fixin' to rip the lid off a whole mess of lies, betrayal, and flat-out murder. Stuff that had been buried neat and tidy for nigh on 10 years. Her clockwork mind, calculating everything, was about to become the scariest thing that neighborhood ever seen. See, Milwaukee's German Quarter back in 73? That was a real lively place. Full of red brick breweries puffing steam, simple wood houses packed close, and the air always humming, with folks chattering in German mixed with English. Felt like a little slice of Bavaria plopped right down beside Lake Michigan. Nearly 8,000 German souls lived there, building their own world. Beer gardens where folks gathered, bakeries smelling like the old country, the whole shebang. Men worked the breweries, big names like Schlitz and Best, and dozens of smaller ones. That's what put Milwaukee on the map. Their wives tended gardens, growing the same kind of vegetables their grandmas had back in the Rhineland. Heinrich and Greta Richter, Emma's folks, they'd come over from Bavaria way back in 1861, dreaming of a better life, bringing their baby girl Emma with them. Heinrich landed steady work as a brewmaster over at Kellner Brewery, a decent-sized outfit keeping Milwaukee thirsty. Greta took in wash in and mend in for extra coin, her fingers flying by candlelight long after they'd tucked Emma into bed in their tidy little house on Galena Street. Nothing fancy, the Richters, salt-of-the-earth folks, except for that daughter of theirs. Emma was born during the rough sailing across the Atlantic, came early, tiny as a minute. Ship's doctor figured she wouldn't make it, but she hung on tough. Stayed small and pale though, with these huge gray eyes that didn't miss nothing. Unsettling, the way she watched everything. Even as a baby, she hardly fussed. Just sat quiet, talking it all in. By the time she was 4, her folks started noticing things weren't right. She'd repeat whole conversations she'd overheard days before, sounding just like the folks who said em. She counted everything, stitches in her mama's sewing, steps to the bakery, the exact time between the brewery whistles marking the workday. When Heinrich taught her simple math, she soaked it up like a sponge, solving problems in her head faster than he could scratch them out on paper. At first, the German folks were kind of proud, but also uneasy. Old Mrs. Brennan, who claimed she remembered stories about witch trials from her grandma, would cross herself if Emma's gray eyes landed on her. But Father Kohler, the stout Bavarian priest running their little Catholic church, said Emma's gifts were a blessing from God. Said she was chosen to show divine wisdom right there in their new home. That winter of 72, it was brutal. Lake Michigan froze solid for the first time anyone could remember. Brewery men huddled round coal stoves, seeing their breath indoors. Wives fought to keep families warm and fed. It was during that long, lonely winter that Emma's gifts started taking a darker turn. Nobody saw it coming. Emma got into the habit of sitting by their kitchen window, watching the neighbors with the same sharp focus she used on math problems. Started noticing patterns in how folks acted. Mr. Kruger always took exactly 247 steps to the brewery, except on Wednesdays, when it jumped to 284. Mrs. Fisher hung her laundry in a set order, but changed it completely when her husband worked late. Might have just been kid stuff, except Emma started saying what she saw, and it made the grown-ups mighty uncomfortable. The real shift, when curiosity turned to dread, happened on a gray February morning in '73. Emma was eating breakfast at the table while Greta fixed Heinrich's lunch pail. Emma looks up, calm as you please, and says, "Mr. Dietrich will not come home from the brewery today. He will die at exactly 14 minutes past 2 o'clock. Greta near dropped the pail. Emma, good Lord, child. What a terrible thing to say. Why on earth would you think that? Emma just stared at her mama with those intense gray eyes. He has been drinking from the small brown bottle for 17 days. Yesterday, he drank 3 times more than usual. His steps were uneven. 251 instead of his normal 244. When people change their patterns by more than 10%, something significant happens within 72 hours. Mr. Dietrich's pattern changed by 12%. The calculation is simple. Heinrich, pulling on his heavy coat, froze. Johann Dietrich was known to take a drink, sure. Half the men did. But the idea that Emma had been counting his steps, tracking his drinking, that was bad enough. Her cold, sure way of predicting his death, that sent a chill through both parents deeper than any Wisconsin winter wind. You must not say such things, Emma, Heinrich said firm. It is not proper for a child to speak of death. Emma just nodded and went back to her food. But her folks shared a real worried look over her head. They were used to her odd pronouncements, but this felt different. Sinister. At exactly 14 minutes past 2 that afternoon, Johann Dietrich dropped dead in the brewery's malt room. Dr. Muller said it was heart failure, brought on by years of drinking poison in him. The men who found him said he'd been acting strange for weeks, drinking heavier, looking scared. But what really shook him? The timing. Emma Richter had called it to the minute. Word spread through the German quarter like wildfire. Some called it luck, a fluke. But others remembered the pale girl with the calculatin eyes and wondered what else she saw from her window. The Richters started getting whispers behind their backs, sideways looks at church or the market. Father Kohler, who'd praised Emma before, now looked worried. When Heinrich cornered him after Sunday Mass, the priest's usual cheer was gone. "Heinrich, my friend," Father Kohler said, his accent thick with concern. "Perhaps it would be best if young Emma spent less time watching the neighbors and more time with her prayers. The Lord gives us gifts, yes, but sometimes the devil can twist even the most innocent abilities toward darker purposes." That hit Heinrich hard. He was a practical man, a brewer, not given to mysteries. But even he couldn't shake off Emma's dead-on prediction. That evening, he sat Emma down serious. "Emma, you tell me the truth now. How did you know about Mr. Dietrich?" Emma looked at him with those big gray eyes, calm as always. "I watch. I count. I remember. Mr. Dietrich's behavior changed in predictable ways. When someone increases their alcohol consumption by 37% over a 17-day period, while simultaneously reducing their food intake by approximately 20%, cardiac stress becomes inevitable. I calculated the most probable time of failure based on his age, weight, and observed symptoms." Heinrich felt the blood drain from his face. His 11-year-old daughter was talking like a doctor, or something worse. "But Emma, how could you know all these details about Mr. Dietrich's eating and drinking?" "I observe everything, Papa. Every day, every person, every pattern." Emma's voice was flat, matter of fact, but something in her eyes made Heinrich's skin crawl. "Would you like me to tell you about the other calculations I have made?" Heinrich shook his head fast. He did not want to know what else his daughter had figured out about their neighbors' lives and deaths. Tucking her in that night, he felt like they were teetering on the edge of something deep and dark. Outside, February snow kept falling, muffling the quarter, making a quiet world where secrets could hide, and where a sharp-eyed girl could see them all. Emma lay quiet in her bed, her math mind working over the day's numbers, calculating odds no kid should know, and sure as shooting no kid should want to know. The weeks after Johann Dietrich died, the air in the German quarter changed, like the wind off the lake shifting cold. Emma kept her watch by the window. Now her folks watched her, uneasy as she tracked the neighbors with that mechanical stare. Their pride had curdled into deep, gnawing worry. The brewery folks were tight. Men relied on each other for work, wives for company, kids played together. Emma never fit. While others played tag or told tales, she sat alone, counting, calculating, watching with that spooky intensity. Greta started noticing Emma's observations getting worse. The kid had mentioned casual-like that Mrs. Weber had been meeting Mr. Kellner's secret behind the brewery every Tuesday afternoon for 6 weeks, or that the Schneiders were burying something in their backyard every Sunday after church. When Greta asked how Emma knew, the girl just said she saw the patterns and figured the odds. "People think they are being secret," Emma said one March morning, buttering her bread slow. "But they follow patterns just like numbers. Mrs. Weber always tells her husband she is visiting her sister on Tuesday afternoons, but she takes 127 steps to Mr. Kellner's house instead of 349 steps to her sister's. The Schneiders bury objects wrapped in cloth exactly 73 centimeters apart in a grid pattern. They believe no one is watching, but I am always watching. Heinrich had heard enough. That night, after Emma was asleep, he talked serious with Greta. Greta, this cannot go on. Emma is becoming unnatural. Children should not see such things, and they sure should not talk about Em so cold. Greta nodded, her hands shaken as she sewed. I am frightened, Heinrich. Not of Emma, but of what people will think. Already the neighbors look at us strange. Mrs. Brennan crossed the street yesterday to avoid me. And Father Kohler, he has not visited since Johann died. Their fears came true 3 days later. Emma was helping peel potatoes for dinner when she stopped sudden, that calculating look on her face. Mrs. Weber will be discovered tomorrow at 11:30 in the morning. Her husband will find her with Mr. Kellner in the brewery office. There will be violence. Greta dropped her knife. Emma, no, you must not say such things. But Emma kept going, like she was solving an equation. Mrs. Weber has been arriving at the brewery 7 minutes earlier each week for 6 weeks. Mr. Kellner has been staying 33 minutes later each day. Tomorrow Mr. Weber will return from his delivery route 47 minutes early, because his horse is developing lameness in her left front leg. I have observed her gait deteriorating for 11 days. The convergence of these 3 variables makes discovery inevitable. Heinrich, listening from the doorway, felt his chest tighten like a vice. His daughter wasn't just watching, she was predicting futures with scary accuracy. Emma, how do you know about Mr. Weber's horse? I count her steps when she passes our house. On March 1st, she favored her right legs 53% of the time. Today, it was 68%. Tomorrow, the lameness will be severe enough to slow the delivery route by 47 minutes, causing Mr. Weber to return early. The next day, played out exactly like Emma said. Wilhelm Weber found his wife Anna with brewery owner Ernst Kellner. The fight that followed busted Kellner's nose and cracked 3 ribs. Anna Weber got beat so bad the doctor had to be called. The scandal rocked the tight German community. But what scared folks more? Realizing little Emma Richter had called the whole thing. Word spread like spilled beer. The pale math girl hadn't just predicted a death. She'd foreseen this scandal down to the minute. People whispered about the strange child at her window, watching, calculating, knowing things no kid should. The Richters got shut out. Friends avoided Em at church. Kids were kept away. Shopkeepers looked at him sideways. Heinrich's job at the brewery got shaky. Other workers eyed him nervous. Ernst Kellner, nursing his wounds, made it clear the Richters weren't welcome anymore. Emma seemed not to notice the hate growing around her. She kept watching, her math mind crunching numbers like gears. She started keeping a leather journal, filling pages with numbers, dates, observations her folks were scared to read. Seeing their 11-year-old bent over her figures, writing neat columns, filled Em with a dread they couldn't name. Winter faded to spring, but the cold shoulder got colder. The quarter that felt like home now felt hostile. Heinrich started thinking the unthinkable, leaving Milwaukee, ditching the life they built, starting over far from the whispers and the fear and Emma's awful accuracy. But Emma wasn't done calculating. The worst was coming. Her math mind was already working on the numbers that would uncover the darkest secrets of all. Come April in Milwaukee, bringing the first real warmth after that mean winter, Emma's journal got fatter. That leather book was her shadow now, filled with complicated figures way beyond simple math. Her folks saw charts tracking how folks acted, tables of number sequences they couldn't crack, detailed maps of the quarter marked with symbols and measurements. Folks' fear of Emma started showing real. Kids were ordered not to walk past the Richter house. Shopkeepers served Em quick and silent. Even Father Kohler kept his distance, except at church. But Emma's loneliness just seemed to sharpen her eyes. Like having no friends left her more time to focus on the number patterns and how people behaved. Dr. Friedrich Muller, the neighborhood doctor, got mighty curious. Unlike the superstitious whispers, Dr. Muller looked at it scientific. He'd studied medicine in Berlin before coming over, seen odd mental things before. When Heinrich came to him private, worried about his daughter, Dr. Muller agreed to check her out. The exam happened on a rainy Thursday in Dr. Muller's office over the Water Street Pharmacy. Emma answered his questions and tests with her usual precision, her gray eyes fixed on some invisible sum. Emma, Dr. Muller said in his accented English, your father tells me you can predict when certain events happen. Can you explain to me how you do this? Emma looked at him with that unnerving stare. I observe patterns and calculate probabilities based on established behavioral data. People believe their actions are random, but they follow mathematical sequences. When I have sufficient data points, I can predict future behavior with high accuracy. Dr. Muller leaned in, interested despite himself. Can you give me an example? Emma flipped through her journal. Mrs. Brennan believes she is keeping a secret, but her pattern is obvious. Every Tuesday and Friday for 8 weeks, she has walked to the church at exactly 3:15 in the afternoon, but instead of entering for prayer, she continues to the rectory and remains for precisely 43 minutes. Father Kohler's pattern has also changed. He has been purchasing extra candles and wine, and his evening prayers have extended by an average of 17 minutes on Tuesdays and Fridays. The correlation is statistically significant. Dr. Muller caught his breath. What Emma was hinting at, about the priest and the widow, was scandal enough. But the cold, methodical way she tracked it, that was deeply disturbing. Emma, how long have you been watching people this way? Always, Emma answered simple. Since I was very small, but I only began making calculations when I learned mathematics. The patterns became clearer then. After the exam, Dr. Muller talked private with Heinrich and Greta. His doctor training told him Emma's thing was neurological, not ghostly. But he had no way to explain what he'd seen. Your daughter's mind works differently than other children's, he said. She processes information in ways that seem almost mechanical. In my opinion, this is a medical condition, not the other things people are saying. But even science couldn't lift the dread around Emma's predictions. 2 days after the exam, Emma made another announcement. There will be a fire at the Zimmerman house on Sunday evening. It will start at 8:47 and spread to 3 adjacent buildings before the volunteer fire brigade can respond. Mr. Zimmerman will not survive. Heinrich felt that familiar chill. Emma, you must not say such things. How could you possibly know about a fire? Emma checked her journal. Mr. Zimmerman has been drinking lamp oil mixed with whiskey for 12 days. I observed him purchasing both items in quantities that exceed normal household use. His wife left for Chicago to visit her sister yesterday, which follows the pattern of wives leaving before significant domestic incidents occur. The chimney on their house has structural damage that I calculated based on the angle of smoke emission and the pattern of soot deposits. The probability of fire is 93%. Greta started crying soft. The way Emma talked about tragedy, like human hurt was just another math problem, scared her worse than any ghost story. This was her child, but she didn't know this cold voice, this machine-like way of seeing pain. Heinrich made a choice that haunted him forever. He decided to warn Franz Zimmerman, hoping maybe to stop it, show Emma's math could do good, not just predict bad. He found Zimmerman at the brewery Saturday evening, stumbling drunk, reeking of lamp oil. Heinrich's warning got met with drunken laughs and jokes about the devil child. But something in Heinrich's desperation must have got through. Zimmerman promised to be careful with the lamps. Sunday evening came warm and dry, a west wind blowing. At exactly 8:47, fire exploded from the Zimmerman house. It spread crazy fast, eating the original house and 3 neighbors' homes before the volunteer firemen could get a handle on it. Franz Zimmerman's body was found in his kitchen, where he'd apparently fallen trying to fight flames way beyond him. Emma's prediction, down to the exact minute, shocked the whole German quarter. Heinrich's warning had been seen by brewery workers. Word got out Emma had called the fire, its timing, and what happened. Folks' worry turned to open fear. The Richter family got completely shut out. But for Emma, the fire was just another number to write down. She noted how her prediction matched what happened, tweaked her figures, and started working on new patterns with the same machine-like focus that made the prediction possible. Worst part? She wasn't done calculating. The days after the Zimmerman fire made the German quarter a place of scared whispers and nervous looks. Emma's prediction was too dead-on, too detailed, too right to be luck. 3 families, Brauns, Kohlers, Steiners, lost homes. The neighborhood scrambled to house Em while trying to swallow the bitter pill of Emma's math prophecies. Heinrich's job at the brewery was toast. Workers avoided him. Talk stopped when he walked in. Ernst Kellner, still marked from Wilhelm Weber's attack, made it clear the Richters weren't welcome anywhere near brewery business. Emma's clockwork predictions had turned their daughter from a curiosity into something folks were scared to even name. Emma herself seemed blind to the hate. She kept watching, filling page after page of her leather book with figures that got more complicated and disturbing. She started making what looked like charts tracking lots of things at once, predicting weeks ahead. Greta got scared to even look at the journal, terrified of what Emma might be calculating about them or the neighbors. The kid who'd been her joy was now pure worry. Emma's cold talk of tragedy, her clinical seeing into folks' private lives, her machine-like way with things that should make you feel. It all added up to a fear that something important was broken in her daughter's head. The last straw came Tuesday morning, late April. Emma sat by her kitchen window, watching the street with that intense stare, when she suddenly looked at her mother. "Mama, there is something wrong with the pattern today." Greta, kneading bread dough, felt her hands shake. "What do you mean, Emma?" Emma flipped through her journal. Every Tuesday for 11 weeks, Mrs. Brennan has walked to the rectory at exactly 3:15, but today she left her house at 2:47 and walked toward the river instead. Her behavior indicates significant distress. Her step length decreased by 12% and her breathing pattern was irregular. This suggests she is planning something final. The cold way Emma talked about Mrs. Brennan killing herself filled Greta with horror. Emma, you must not speak of such things. Mrs. Brennan is a good woman. She would never. The mathematical probability is 87%. Emma cut in, like she was talking about rain. People who dramatically alter established behavioral patterns while displaying physical signs of distress typically execute irreversible decisions within 4 hours of the pattern change. Mrs. Brennan's pattern changed 43 minutes ago. Greta felt the room spin. Her 11-year-old daughter calmly predicted a neighbor's suicide with math. It was too much. She dropped the dough and ran to find Heinrich, who was in their tiny garden, trying to find peace digging dirt for spring planting. Heinrich, come quick. Emma says Mrs. Brennan is going to hurt herself. We gotta do something. Heinrich saw the terror on her face, felt the dread that was their constant shadow. They found Emma still by the window, writing in her journal like she was recording science, not predicting a life ending. Emma, tell me exactly what you saw about Mrs. Brennan. Emma looked up. She deviated from her established Tuesday pattern by 28 minutes. Her physical indicators suggested severe emotional distress. Based on historical data about behavioral pattern disruption, the probability of self-harm is 87%, with peak likelihood occurring between 5 and 7 this evening. Heinrich made a choice showing his desperation and his growing belief in Emma. He ran out searching for Margaret Brennan, heading toward the river like Emma said. He found the old widow standing on the fishing dock, staring at the dark water like her heart was broke. Mrs. Brennan? Heinrich called soft, walking careful. You all right? The old woman turned, eyes red from crying. Heinrich, what are you doing here? I was worried about you. You seem troubled lately. Mrs. Brennan's face crumpled. I can't bear it no more. Heinrich. The shame, the whispers, everyone knowing about my weakness. Father Kohler says it's sin, but I can't help how I feel about him. Better to end it than live with this disgrace. Heinrich realized with horror Emma was right about Mrs. Brennan and Father Kohler. The old woman really was thinking of ending it. He spent 2 hours talking her down from the river, convincing her shame wasn't worth dying for, that folks would forget. When he got home that evening, Emma was finishing notes in her journal. Mrs. Brennan did not follow through with her plan. She said, clinical. The intervention changed the probability calculation. I will need to adjust my variables for future predictions involving third-party interference. Heinrich stared, disbelieving. Emma had seen and calculated a suicide that hadn't happened, and now treated his savoir as just another number for her models. Realizing his kid wasn't just predicting bad things, but studying human pain like a scientist, that filled him with a horror he couldn't name. That night, while Emma slept peaceful, Heinrich and Greta made a choice that changed everything. They couldn't stay in Milwaukee. Whatever Emma had, it made life impossible. Worse, their daughter seemed losing touch with the feeling behind the tragedies she saw. They started planning quiet to leave Wisconsin, find someplace Emma wouldn't be feared, where her strange mind might find a different path. But Emma wasn't done calculating. The worst secrets were still coming. As Heinrich lay awake, hearing the quarter settle, he couldn't shake the feeling Emma's math mind had found secrets deeper than affairs or suicide. The cold precision, the complex figures, it all screamed she'd been watching and recording way more than anyone knew. And the scariest part? She was still calculating. The big reveal, uncovering the German quarter's darkest secret, came May 1st, 1873. Emma had been making wild, complex figures in her journal, making charts tracking almost every grown-up around. Her folks were packing to leave Wisconsin, hoping to get out before Emma's next prediction wrecked more lives. But that morning, spring light streaming in, Emma made an announcement that would crack the community wide open. Papa, she said, looking up from her journal with those calculating eyes, I need to show you something important. My calculations have revealed a pattern that explains everything. Heinrich, dreading this moment for weeks, sat down slow. Emma opened her book to charts, maps, and number sequences looking more like a detective's work than a kid's scribbles. For 26 months, she started, clinical, I have been observing and recording the behavior patterns of 43 adults in our community. Initially, I believed the patterns were random variations, but when I analyzed the data systematically, I discovered correlations that indicate organized criminal activity. Heinrich felt his blood freeze. Emma, what are you saying? Emma pointed at her charts like a professor. 7 men in our community have been meeting secretly every Wednesday at midnight in the basement of Kellner's brewery. I calculated their movement patterns based on observed deviations from normal behavior, timing inconsistencies in their stated activities, and physical evidence of their gatherings. She tapped a detailed map marked with symbols. Mr. Steinberg tells his wife he works late Wednesday nights, but he leaves the mill at exactly the same time as the other 6 men and walks to the brewery, avoiding main streets. The pattern has been consistent for 26 months. Only 3 exceptions, tied to illness or family trouble. Heinrich stared, recognizing the names: Wilhelm Weber, Franz Kellner, Ernst's brother; Hans Zimmermann, Franz's cousin; Otto Steinberg, Klaus Brennan, Margaret's dead husband till 3 months back; Gustav Wolf, Hermann Kruger. Emma, how could you know about secret meetings? I observe everything, Papa. Every night, every movement, every change from normal. Emma turned to pages filled with calculations. But the meetings ain't the worst. My calculations indicate these 7 men have been involved in systematic theft from the brewery operations, with estimated losses of approximately $47,000 over 26 months. Heinrich's hands shook. That kind of money was a lifetime's earning for most. How could you figure that? Emma explained like it was simple math. I noticed differences between the reported beer production and what I calculated based on seen deliveries, stuff bought, waste thrown out. The difference showed theft, but I needed to find who. She pointed to charts tracking the 7 men. These folks all spent more money than their jobs paid for. Mr. Weber bought new furniture worth about $300. Mr. Steinberg sent money to Germany. I saw him at the post office 12 times with packages too big for letters. Same pattern for all 7. Heinrich knew he was looking at proof of a crime ring his 11-year-old uncovered by watching and calculating. But Emma wasn't done. The theft needed inside knowledge of brewery security and the money books. Emma went on. My calculations pointed to someone in charge. The patterns pointed to Ernst Kellner himself as the organizer. That last piece hit Heinrich like a hammer. Ernst Kellner, the brewery owner Friesen, out, was the mastermind? The cold accuracy of Emma's work, the math proof, the months of watching. It pointed to a truth both unbelievable and terrifying. Emma, these are heavy accusations. You sure about this? Emma checked her book one last time. The mathematical probability is 96%. But Papa, there is something else. Something that explains why Mr. Kellner has been trying to push us out. Heinrich felt his chest squeeze. What do you mean? Mr. Kellner knows I see everything. He has been watching me watch him. 3 weeks ago, he came to our house twice at night, stood outside 17 minutes each time, like he was figuring if I knew his secret. His behavior indicates he suspects I know about the theft operation. Realizing Emma's math hadn't just found a crime, but made her a target, filled Heinrich with pure terror. His daughters watching and calculating had dug up secrets powerful men would kill to keep buried. Emma closed her book and looked at him with those gray eyes. Papa, my calculations indicate we are in significant danger. Mr. Kellner and the others cannot allow me to keep watching. The mathematical probability of them taking action against our family is 84%, with peak likelihood within the next 72 hours. Heinrich understood. Emma's final prediction wasn't about fire or suicide. It was about their own family's life. Her math mind had uncovered a truth that made staying in Milwaukee impossible. The men she'd exposed wouldn't blink at silencing the one witness who could destroy him. That evening, Heinrich made the choice that saved their lives. Using Emma's journal proof, he went to Dr. Muller after dark and showed him what Emma found. The doctor, already troubled by Emma, was stunned by the math precision of her detective work. Heinrich, Dr. Muller whispered, looking at the journal by lamplight. If Emma's right, this is the biggest theft Milwaukee's ever seen. But worse, if Kellner suspects she knows, your family's in killing danger. Dr. Muller agreed to help him escape. Using his doctor connections, he got Heinrich an emergency job offer at a brewery way up in Minnesota, cover for their sudden run. They'd leave that very night, before Emma's 72 hours were up. Loading their few things into Dr. Muller's wagon in the dark, Emma made one last observation that would haunt Heinrich forever. Papa, in approximately 6 months, the theft operation will be discovered through other means. Mr. Kellner will face justice, but 3 of the 7 men will not survive the investigation. The mathematical probabilities are quite clear. Heinrich shuddered, lifting Emma into the wagon. Even running for their lives, she was calculating the fallout. Her prediction would hit every mark. By winter, a federal investigation busted the theft ring. Ernst Kellner got arrested, convicted of stealing over $50,000. Wilhelm Weber, Kellner's main helper, was found dead at home, called suicide, but many suspected worse. Otto Steinberg and Hermann Kruger also died quick, Steinberg in a drunken accident, Kruger from a sudden heart attack Dr. Muller thought looked like poison. Emma's math on the crime ring had been perfect, including her call that not all the thieves would live to see justice. The Richters vanished from Milwaukee May 2nd, 1873, leaving only whispers and questions. Dr. Muller said they'd been called back to Bavaria sudden, but folks who checked found no ship records. What the German quarter never learned was Heinrich, Greta, and Emma went to Minnesota. Heinrich got work at a small brewery in New Ulm. Dr. Muller kept their secret, knowing Emma's math gift would always make her a target for folks with something to hide. In New Ulm, the Richters tried to build new lives, away from the fear that chased Em from Milwaukee. Heinrich found comfort in familiar brew work. Greta slowly rebuilt her home routines. But Emma? She stayed the same. Her math mind kept watching, calculating, recording how folks acted with that same machine-like precision. Dr. Muller wrote Em for months, saying Emma had started working with a math professor at a nearby college, a German named Dr. Hermann Weiss. Weiss saw her things scientific, not supernatural, helping her understand and steer her watching skills toward good, not harm. But the biggest news came November 73, when Dr. Muller got a letter from Heinrich with Emma's final prediction about the Milwaukee theft. Just like she'd calculated, federal men busted Ernst Kellner's ring. Kellner got nailed for stealing over 50 grand. Wilhelm Weber was found dead at home. Suicide. But folks smelled a rat. Otto Steinberg and Hermann Kruger died quick too. Steinberg in a drunk accident. Kruger from a sudden heart attack Dr. Muller thought looked poisoned. Emma's math on the crime? Dead accurate, including Callan that not all the thieves would survive. The German quarter slowly patched itself up after the scandal of 73. The theft mess brought unwelcome federal eyes, but it cleaned out corruption that had been festering years. New families moved into empty houses. The close-knit group rebuilt itself on cleaner ground. But the tale of Emma Richter, the pale girl with calculating eyes who predicted death and dug up secrets through math, became neighborhood ghost story fodder. Parents used it to warn kids about knowing too much. Grown-ups wondered what other secrets hid behind their neighbors' doors. Father Kohler, who'd first blessed Emma's gift as holy, later told Dr. Muller her math predictions shook his faith deep. He wondered if some knowledge was too dangerous, if Emma's condition was a blessing or a curse on their community. Just when we figured we'd heard the worst, the horror in Milwaukee's German quarter takes another turn. If this tale's given you the shivers, share this video with a buddy who loves dark mysteries. Smash that like button to help us out. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's find out together what happens next in the creepiest bits of America's past. Dr. Muller's last letter to the Richters came spring 74, almost a year after they left. He wrote that the quarter was mostly back to normal, but Emma's story still got whispered among the old-timers. He also shared something dark that came up in the federal theft probe. Government men found Emma's journal, left with Dr. Muller as proof, held math way beyond the crime. Emma had been tracking and analyzing how all the German immigrants acted, making detailed profiles of dozens of families, predicting future stuff scary accurate. The federal men, trained investigators, were impressed and disturbed by how sharp her watching methods were. Your daughter's mind works like a pro detective might envy, Dr. Muller wrote. But I admit I'm glad she's far from Milwaukee. The sharpness of her watching and the math certainty of her predictions, that's a kind of knowing too dangerous for any town to have. The last trace of Emma Richter in history? A tiny note in New Ulm College Math Department records from 1875. Professor Hermann Weiss said his special student showed amazing skills in stats and predicting behavior, but her family moved again for personal reasons. After that, Emma Richter vanished from history as clean as she'd vanished from Milwaukee that May night in 73. What happened to the girl who could math out human behavior? Nobody knows. Some folks think families like the Richters, with special kids, hid on purpose to protect Em from being studied or hated. Emma's story is one of the few times such a gift got written down clear enough to see what it could do. This mystery reminds us the human mind is still one of our biggest puzzles, able to cook up wild skills that rattle what we know about smarts, watching, and predicting. Back in 1873, folks saw Emma Richter's mathway with people as either holy or hellish. But modern science knows things like savant syndrome, autism spectrum stuff, or hyperthymesia can make minds work in ways seeming supernatural to folks who don't get the brain wiring. What do you think? Did we get the whole story, or could Emma's gift go even deeper? Drop a comment below. Tell us if you ever met someone with a mind like that. If you like this tale and want more horror history, subscribe, hit the bell, and share with a mystery lover. These old cases show us the scariest truths are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right mind to math out their awful secrets. Emma Richter's case, proves sometimes the most terrifying finds ain't from ghosts or demons, but from pure math logic applied to how people act. In a world where we think our secrets are safe, minds like Emma's remind us privacy might be a fairy tale, and the patterns we think we hide might be plain as day to folks who know how to look and how to count.